This design really gives me hope for the car design profession. It feels fun, and you can tell that the designers were allowed to really express their inner child here. For example, just by looking at the super aggressive fenders, the overall stance, and the ground clearance, which is super high compared to the regular Bronco. And last but not least, the massive 37-inch tires, which come standard here on the Bronco Raptor, and not just as an option like we have on the F-150 Raptor. And when it comes to power, the Ford Bronco Raptor gets a power boost with its 3-liter twin-turbo V6 that it shares some hardware as well with the F-150 Raptor here, such as the long travel suspension, the adaptive Fox racing shocks, and the previously mentioned 37-inch BFGoodrich KO2 all-terrain tires and the 17-inch wheels as well. What I want to do in this video is talk about the new Bronco Raptor, discuss some of the tech and spec, and then jump into Photoshop because I want to compare it to the standard Bronco and then show you the differences with this Bronco Raptor. There are quite a few, and one substantial difference that I'm not sure I like on the new Bronco Raptor. More on that later when we jump into Photoshop. Now, this is not just one of these SUVs that you buy to cruise around town, which is probably what most of these Bronco Raptors are going to end up doing anyway. This is a serious off-road machine, and it comes with front and rear locking differentials and a disconnecting front anti-roll bar. Ford wanted the Bronco Raptor to be capable of both high-speed desert racing as well as technical rock crawling. So it is a pretty wide vehicle. It's almost as wide as the F-150 Raptor, and this means that it needs to have the 3 amber marker lights front and center like we have on the F-150 Raptor, and this is of course due to regulations. Let's talk a little bit about the engine here. So this is the same V6 that you find in the Ford Explorer ST, and in that one it makes 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque, and this should have something similar to that. Do I wish that it had a V8? Yes, I kind of do, because I feel if you put a V8 in the Bronco Raptor, it would make it feel more special. And the Jeep 392 Rubicon also has a V8, so it would be more in comparison with that. But at the same time, a V8 in the Bronco Raptor wasn't really expected because the F-150 Raptor also has the twin turbo V6, so we were pretty sure they was going to put that in the Bronco Raptor as well. The transmission is unchanged from the stock Bronco. It's still the same 10-speed automatic transmission that you get in the regular Bronco, and with the same gear ratio. So what about pricing here? And I think this is where it gets really interesting, because the Bronco Raptor, it starts at $69,995, which I think relatively it's a pretty good deal for what you get from factory and the capabilities and the tech that you get from Ford straight out of the box. Just as a comparison here, the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 starts at $76,395. Now, if I were to buy this Bronco Raptor, I would think like this: do I want to spend this money on the Bronco Raptor, or if you compare it to, for example, not even the G63 AMG, but the G550, that's double the money that you pay for a Bronco Raptor. And I don't know, I would much rather have the Bronco Raptor to go and have some fun off-road than cruising around in the G550, but that's just me, and that's also half the price of the G550, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So now let's jump into Photoshop here, and let's talk about this design. I have a couple of things I want to show you in the front, and then we're gonna go to the rear, last but not least, the side. So let's have a look at what's actually different here. This is the 2022, I can't remember the name of this green, but I absolutely love the shade of this green. It's probably the one I would pick here for the Ford Bronco. It's a beautiful deep forest green. I think it looks cool. This has the Sasquatch package, as you can see right here. I wouldn't have it any other way. And the Sasquatch, as you know, comes with 35-inch tall tires right here, and you have these widened fenders here as well. And on top of that, it just looks better stance-wise. It suits this design, boxy design, better to have the Sasquatch package. Yes, you can buy the base Bronco if you want, and then you can put 35s on there as an aftermarket deal, and that looks pretty good as well. I've seen a couple of base Broncos with some upgraded wheels and tires, and it still looks really, really good. What I don't really would have myself on this specific Bronco right here is this bull bar in the front. I would not have this because it's right in front of the Bronco name, and I love this grille here. I want to show off the Bronco name in the front end, and what this bull bar does It just covers the letters almost right in front of it. So it's kind of an interesting design there from Ford, because this is a Ford accessory to just have it up there. You could have made it a little lower maybe to not cover so much of the logo in the front end. And I think this, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that this right here is metal, some sort of steel. You have the skid plate underneath, and you have that also, of course, on the Ford Bronco Raptor, which we have down here. So the biggest difference here in visual cues or design features, graphic features of the Ford Bronco is you're gonna notice first of all the width of this thing. So this is the Sasquatch, which is pretty wide with these massive fenders right here, but it's nothing compared to what you have in the Bronco Raptor down there. These are just massive. And on top of that, you can see that they squared them out here. I actually made a quick edit when the Bronco first came out because I wanted to see what does the Bronco look like if it had squared fenders. I made a quick little edit and I'm going to show that right here. The problem I had with that was it all of a sudden started to look way too similar to a Jeep Wrangler, and I really prefer, in this case, in the Bronco case, I prefer the rounded ones over the kind of weird looking square fenders. We're gonna have a look at that in side view. Then I'm gonna show you just how weird specifically the rear one looks. I prefer the rounded ones in this case over these squared ones. But other than that, you have the 37-inch tires right here. So here you can see the comparison in size and overall stance from 35 up here to 37-inch tall tires down there, and you have the 17-inch wheels. So you have a lot of sidewall here for the BFGoodrich tires to really grip the terrain, whatever terrain you're going over. And of course you have this now, the skid plate being silver on the Raptor and it's black on the regular Bronco up there. And I heard somewhere that you can kind of remove some piece of this, maybe it's the whole thing here, but then you remove the lights as well. But you can remove some piece right here to increase the approach angle right here. So you remove this plastic piece right here, for example, and that will give the wheel more of an approach angle if you have that removed. And as you can see right here, you have two rigid lights, and this is something that I'm not really a fan of when it comes to the Raptor designs, both the F-150 and the Bronco. The Bronco here, it has these two rigid lights, and it looks too aftermarket for my taste. I really wish Ford would have designed their own lights and not just slap in two rigid lights, even though the functionality is probably superb. But this is more of an issue for me in the F-150, because the F-150 has a really nice design with the LEDs on the regular one, and then it goes into the bumper like this with an L, almost like a C shape of a LED. But when you buy the F-150 Raptor, they also have, they've removed this graphic feature and instead just put in, similar to what they've done here, put in just two rigid lights down there and call it a day. It's kind of, I understand the functionality, but from a design standpoint, I'd rather have Ford design their own lights for the Raptors, both the Bronco and the F-150. You can see that one here is covered from factory, and that is because if you have both of these uncovered, the amount of light is illegal because it's going to be too bright to have on regular roads. So you only can use both of these lights if you're off-roading. So now let's have a look at the rear view and what's going on here. The biggest problem that I could see for the designers to solve this problem is that if we have a 35-inch tires right here compared to the 37, you need to make a lot of changes in the rear end. You can see that you have to reinforce the hinge here to be able to hold this 37 massive tire right there. And you can see that the taillight design, the graphic features inside of the taillight is also unique for the Bronco Raptor compared to the normal one. And which one you prefer, that's totally up to you. But I have to say, in this case as well, I kind of prefer the standard Bronco taillight right there. These LEDs, I really like the way they look, and this looks at the same time, same thing, kind of like in the front, it looks a little too aftermarket-y for my taste. And since we're having a 37-inch tire right here in the back, that means that the designers or engineers, they need to figure out how to raise this brake light up here. You can see that it's very tiny. So this, if you're gonna go with a 37-inch tire, it's going to block a lot of your rear view here through the window there, unless I'm not sure if the Bronco has this camera which fills up the entire rear view mirror inside. If you have that, then this is not a problem, but if you're using visual just to look out back, then you're gonna have this massive 37-inch tires just blocking a pretty substantial part of it compared to the 37-inch tire right here. Other than that, what else can we see here? Well, you can see that the fenders here, you can see the design of them. Pretty interesting design here. Looks a little kind of like melted cheese to me, this design. And you have one fender there and then an additional fender going right here. I think this is something that they had to put on because of regulation. So you have almost like a double fender going on here just for stone chips and so on, not to throw stones back at the cars behind you. But now we're going to go into the really interesting view, and that is the side view here. So looking at the side, as I said, I prefer the rounded feeling of the fenders of the regular Bronco because it goes back to the original Bronco as well, which had a little bit of a squarish in the back, but the front end was a round fender like this. If you go back to the early Broncos, looking at him right here, you can see that the rear fender of the Raptor, it looks pretty interesting here. It looks like it's very irregular design. So you have rounded right here in the front end, and then it goes into this square corner, and it stretches so far back on the bodywork, and then before it dips down here. So it's a very interesting approach to the design, and I feel like it takes up too much of the bodywork, if that makes sense. And that's why I prefer the clean approach that we have on the regular Bronco right here. And if I were to pick one of these, if I were to buy one of these, even though I think the Bronco Raptor is a very, very good value for what you're paying for and what you get when it comes to off-road capabilities, you basically don't need to do anything with the Bronco Raptor if you're planning on going seriously off-roading, because it has everything you need. But so does the Sasquatch package up here. I think this is enough for 97% of any type of off-roading you're gonna do. And on top of that, I prefer the design of this. I think is a lot more clean than the Raptor. The Raptor looks super fun, and specifically when you have this, I love this hood design here. If you look at this from the top view, you have these aggressive vents here in the side and this big side step down here as well. Very cool design, but I don't think it adds so much to the Sasquatch package, except for visual aggressive design features and a couple of upgrades to the engine. I mean, it's a different engine. It's a V6 with 400 horsepower, so you get more power, obviously. But for what it is, if you're going for a Bronco, I would still go with the original Bronco 4-door Sasquatch package in this color. But what I would do is, I've seen on online recently, a lot of people are retro styling their Broncos and make them look like the 70s graphic design. I really love some of those designs, and that's probably what I would do myself if I got the Sasquatch Bronco.